Hi friends, this is Dr. Prafulla Dikshit. I'm here uh, with a very uh, interesting and relevant topic on statistics, especially in terms of academic applications and academic research. This is very relevant, and it gives a really hard time to many of the researchers, students, and practitioners of in various fields who are actually trying to apply statistics and its principles into their work, and whose work is in some way or the other related to statistics or has an application of statistics. So here we are, right? So the topic is a p-value. Now, what is p-value? P-value is, so to say, it represents uh, a probability, really. It's about a probability. It's a probability of how far the results of of a research are significant. And however, uh, this is a very well debated topic. It's a controversial topic at certain levels in the research field. But then it is definitely one of the most applied concepts, because it is the foundation of hypothesis testing, which is the modern definitive uh, milestone in modern research in terms of research methodology and its statistical basis. So let's start with uh, a few questions. Okay, uh, I would like all of you to ponder over certain points, to think about certain things before we actually get on to the real topic, the real thing. We need to gather our ideas. We need to think about it, and uh, I need to focus on what is the basis of whatever we're trying to do. Is here is p-value. In order to get an idea of what is p-value, we start with significance. Now, significance and p-value are quite related. I'll come back to that in some amount of time. But then significance is, in common terms, is it's what do you understand by significance? It's importance. Significance is uh, vitality. Significance, but anything that is important to you, anything that has some weightage is significant, right? So in research terms, significance is what do you say? It it is the significance of the results. So we can't just talk about it in generic terms. In research, we have to be very specific, and in specific terms, when we talk about significance, so it can be, although it can be different things to different people, uh, but a very specific definition of significance has been given, and according to that, it's the importance of a process, or the phenomenon or event in terms of its outcomes, really. So when we talk about significance or the importance of anything is about about the outcomes, or the results of any process, anything, anything you do. This is in any field, and not just in statistics or research or science. In any field, in your day-to-day life, in fact, whatever you do, how important it is measured in terms of the results that it produces. If the results are important enough to you, that means that thing is important to you. If the results are not significant or important, that means that thing is not significant. It's simple as that. So I think we've got a head start in terms of understanding of significance, and we'll come to p-value when we are through with significance, because significance is quite related and is the basis or the application of p-value. You know, so p-value and significance are quite related, and we started with significance. Significance, in generic terms, is definitely related to the outcomes of that thing. Now, moving ahead, another thing I would like you to think about is, what is an effect? Now, an effect is definitely so. We started with um, um, significance, importance, and results, right? So, and outcomes, of course. So now, outcome, the change in an outcome, the change that we expect in an outcome, or that is observed in an outcome, um, can be seen as an effect of that particular process or an event, or whatever you say, a phenomenon, anything that happens in nature, any change that takes place produces some effect or the other. Now, whether that change or effect is important enough for us determines its significance. Got that? Simple enough. Okay. So, in simplest terms, an effect is a change observed in one variable due to its relationship with another. Okay. So, this is an added dimension to our understandings of what we have developed about significance and importance of anything, and in terms of its effect or the outcomes. Uh, we say an effect is a change that is observed. Yeah. So we just talked about change in terms of its results or outcomes, but to be more specific, uh, the change is observed actually in terms of a variable owing to its relationship with another variable, right? So now we introduce another thing in our understanding of effect and significance, and that is a variable. Now, what is a variable? Anything that changes is a variable. Anything that um, is not constant is variable, right? So there are different kinds of variables. We'll come to variables in detail later on, but then um, for starters, a variable is something, an entity that is subject to change. So now, when a process takes place, there is a change, right? But what changes? What is it that changes? Okay, so we've been talking about changes, process, and outcomes, and results. So in other words, we've been talking about change. What is it that changes in all those things, in a process, in an event, in nature? What changes? So there are certain things which change, and those are known as variables. Now, a change is produced by a relationship between two things that can change. A thing changes and it changes another thing, right? I change, I change the way I look at things, or maybe so for example, I'm just looking at you, right? I'm staring at you, right? Let's do it like this. I'm staring at you like this, or I'm looking at you with a sweet smile. Does it produce any change in you? It does. Of course, it does. It produces a change in your mood. So your mood is a variable, and my facial expression is a variable. Isn't it wonderful? Right? So we defined an effect in a very, very simple and very subtle terms. And this effect is a change observed in one variable due to its relationship with another. Now, the example we took, my facial expression is one variable, and your mood, whatever goes on inside you after seeing my face, or a change in my facial expression, is another variable. Now, what is affecting what? So there are no guesses for. I mean, there are no rewards for guessing what changes what, right? So, okay. So here in this case, these are the two variables. There can be any number of examples, any umpteen number of examples wherein one variable changes or produces change in another variable, right? Okay. So I think you guys are with me on this, right? Okay. So far what we have seen is we started with significance, right? In fact, we started with p-value, but we left it out. We put it aside for the moment, and we briefly introduced it, and we said, okay, p-value is the probability of, you know, the significance uh, in statistical results. But then that's about it. And then we moved on to certain more fundamental aspects, and then we moved ahead, and we introduced outcomes, we introduced change, and we introduced variables. Most importantly, effect is effect does not happen in vacuum. It does not happen by itself. Something has to change for an effect to take place. And what is that something? That something is the variable. And the variable itself is something that produces change in another variable, and that is what we call an effect. Now, an effect can be either significant or it can be insignificant. Okay, and now since I'm talking to actual and potential researchers, people who have interest in research, okay, so those people who have really some stake in knowing the significance of their results, how important the results are. Why would you want to know how important the results are? Because if your results are significant enough, they'll be accepted by the scientific community. They'll be accepted as important, something that advances the scientific knowledge in that particular field. Not only that, it's only significant results that are produced, that are applicable uh, in most of the cases. However, there is a flip side to it. Do you think if the results are not significant, they're not important, or they're to be discarded? Of course, they are eventually discarded, but then do you think it's not a finding? It is a finding. Even if a result, even if it's an outcome is not significant, it's not found to be significant, it is still an outcome, and it is still a finding which needs to be noted in the literature. Because if you found that something doesn't work, somebody else doesn't need to waste his time working on the whole thing over and over again, right? That is why, uh, depending upon how important the application, the area of research is, even insignificant results need to be properly documented, and they need to be part of published research, right? So it's like saying it is it's not just important to know what works in a particular area. It's also very, very important to know what doesn't work in a particular area.